और जो लोग जूम पे डायरेक्ट नहीं आ पाते हैं वो लोग यूट्यूब पे लाइव भी देख सकते हैं। और इन फ्यूचर भी आप कभी भी इस प्रोग्राम को यूट्यूब पे देख सकते हैं सभी लोग। ओके सर, वेरी good afternoon sir. Just going to start. Very good evening to our respective guests, speakers, professors, research scholars, students, and who are directly joined this webinar. We are obliged under the aegis of Forum of Commerce and Management Studies. Before starting the meeting, we discuss about our forum. This forum was established by all of us together in February 2020 during pandemic. The aim of this forum is to reach online education to as many people as possible. This forum chairman, Dr. Shekhar Sharma, he is a renowned professor of account and finance from UP. I am the secretary of this forum, associate professor of finance and management from UP. Srimati Trapti Singh is the joint secretary of this forum. She is the assistant lecturer, Government College Kambal. With a lot of achievement, which has Mojar Indo Nepal Harmony International Award and Vishnu Guru Award. Today's convener of this seminar, Dr. Jeevan Jhunjhunwala, the professor of account and management, Christ College, Qatar. And our international advisory board, Professor S.L. Gupta, Professor and Dean, Muscat, Oman, Dr. Sameer Rohadia, renowned data scientist, Germany, Dr. Sanjay Sharma, Semi-Director of T-Mobile, USA, Dr. Saad Amjad Khan, Professor of Management, Oman, Dr. Rajneesh Ratan Sir, Professor of Management, Bhutan, Dr. V.K. Gangal, Professor of Finance, Dayal University, UP, Dr. K.U.R.M. Nayak, Director, Lakshmi Vidyapeeth, Gujarat, Dr. Kamlesh Bharadwaj, Professor of Psychology, UP, Dr. G. Vijaya Lakshmi, Professor of Commerce, Jharkhand, Dr. Smita Suresh Giri, Professor of Chemistry, Maharashtra, Dr. Parth Kumar Nara, Professor of History, Assam, Dr. Sashendra A. Kailur, Professor of Physical Education, Karnataka, Dr. Neeraj Upadhyay, Professor of Mathematics, UP, Dr. Manish Kumar Agarwal, Professor of Management from UK, Dr. Nitin Goyal, Professor of Management, Oman, Dr. Abdul Qayyum Masood, Associate Professor of Management, Bangladesh, Dr. M. Rahman, Associate Professor of Business and Accounting, Malaysia. About my forum. सबसे पहले आज कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत में भारतीय होने के नाते हम सभी लोग माँ सरस्वती की वंदना और अर्चना करते हैं। मैं सभी लोगों से निवेदन करता हूँ माँ सरस्वती की वंदना के लिए।
या कुन्देन्दु तुषारहार धवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युत शङ्कर प्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा। शुक्लां ब्रह्मविचारिणीं स्फाटिकमालिकां विदधतीम् पद्मासने संस्थितां वन्दे तां परमेश्वरीं भगवतीम् बुद्धिप्रदां शारदाम्।
Thank you so much. आप सभी का today's topic of fifth international webinar is women empowerment, anti-trafficking and after-care service. Today's keynote speaker, Dr. Sonal Pandey, Assistant Professor of School of Humanities and Social Sciences, Sharda University, Greater Noida, India. Dr. Sonal Pandey pursued University Grant Commission postdoctoral fellowship for women from the Center for Social Medicine and Community Health, School of Social Science, JNU, New Delhi. He is also research officer honorary at Anthro India Foundation, New Delhi. Dr. Sonal Pandey worked as a research officer in NGO Shade of Happiness, worked as a junior project fellow in the Department of Educational Research, NCRT, New Delhi, worked as a senior research fellow in the Department of Humanities and Social Science, Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, worked as a junior research fellow in Department of Humanity and Social Sciences, Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. Dr. Sonal Pandey research interest, sex trafficking, child rights and protection, anthropography, quantitative method, public policy, and business anthropology. Dr. Sonal Pandey invites for a several talks in India and abroad. Dr. Sonal Pandey nominated as a youth ambassador for raising awareness on child sexual abuse among the parents by the Center for Youth and Social Welfare, Bhubaneswar. Dr. Sonal Pandey received ICSSR International Travel Grant 2019 to present the paper in an international conference, Berlin, Germany. Am I audible, everyone?
जी सर।
मुझे लगता है कुछ
because of technical problem for few.
Dr. Sonal Pandey received merit certificate for as a award. Dr. Sonal Pandey award and honors nomination as a youth ambassador for raising awareness on child sexual abuse among the parents by the Center for Youth and Social Welfare, Bhubaneswar. सोनल पांडे के बारे में बहुत लंबा सीवी मेरे पास है। मैं उनके बारे में बताते बताते प्रोग्राम जो है हो जाएगा। मैं डॉक्टर सोनल पांडे से प्रार्थना करता हूँ, निवेदन करता हूँ कि वो आए और सेशन को स्टार्ट करें। Dr. Sonal Pandey.
Sorry. Namaskar. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your generous introduction. Just a second. मेरी स्क्रीन दिख रही है सबको? Women empowerment, anti-trafficking and aftercare services. Now, this topic is part of my research, and when I'll be referring to trafficked women, before starting my discussion about the traffic victims or traffic survivors, which was topic of my research, I would raise one question related to women empowerment and leave it to you. I don't need an answer, or I won't give you an answer for that. It is just a question you need to think about. I'll begin with a story. There was a girl who got married into a very rich family. She was educated and she got educated. She got married into educated and well-to-do family. So when she was sitting among the ladies after her marriage, so she was being introduced that, oh, your grandfather-in-law was this, and his great-grandfather was this and this. So she kept on listening to this and this and this. So after some time, she just stopped and asked one question, and there was a pin drop silence. Do we know the name of great-grandmother? You have been talking about my great-grandfather, grandfather-in-law and all, and father-in-law. But do any of you remember who was the great-grandmother? So this question is for all of you sitting here. All of you. Please, I don't want an answer, but you need to think about. When we talk of our family, our lineage, our descent, we say, oh, we hail from this family, our family is so well-to-do. अच्छा, one midwhile I'll ask you, sir, should I keep it English or bilingual? Sir, क्या prefer करेंगे आप लोग? Hello, sir. Tarun, sir. It should be bilingual or I can go on.
Madam, both will do.
अच्छा, ठीक है.
जैसे आप चाहें.
I think I should keep it bilingual. तो उसने बस यही पूछा कि मेरी जो दादी सा थी, ग्रेट दादी सा, उनका क्या नाम है? तो क्योंकि living in the 21st century, we often assume कि we have women empowerment around us, we see females in jobs around us, we see dual working couple family. And we think that, oh, women empowerment have reached to all of us. Now all India is getting empowerment. And who are the people who want to discuss this women empowerment? Because women don't need this. There are many people, a lot of people think that in India today, we don't need any discussion of this thing because women are already empowered. And in fact, there is also claims that these women empowerment debates are just anti-male or they are anti-patriarchy. So I don't want to comment on this because मैं trafficking पे बात करने वाली हूँ, मैं sex trafficking पे बात करूंगी. मैं बस आपसे आज ये चाहती हूँ कि when you leave this meeting room, you think about this. Do you know the name of your great grandmother? क्योंकि family women empowerment तभी आपके ground level पे पहुंचता है जब वो आपकी family में पहुंचता है. एक इंदिरा गांधी से हम वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट का झंडा नहीं खड़ा कर सकते बिकॉज हम कहते हैं कि हमारे यहाँ इंडियन शी वाज लेडी प्राइम मिनिस्टर, और या हम प्रतिभा पाटिल से वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट का बेंचमार्क नहीं सेट करते हैं. और ये तो हुई आम महिलाओं की बात. आज मैं जिन महिलाओं की बात करने वाली हूँ जो सेक्स ट्रैफिकिंग विक्टिम्स हैं, उनकी स्टोरी तो और भी डिफरेंट है, जिस एंगल से हमने कभी उनको सोचा भी नहीं. So sex trafficking for brothel-based prostitution. We all know sex trafficking is rampant in India. There are a lot. Every now and then you'll have one newspaper story in which we will there would be talk about that sex trafficking racket busted, or this many girls were rescued from this brothels, or they were raid in this area. So and we know that we have a history of sex trafficking in which हमारे पास देवदासी सिस्टम था, then we have तवायस सिस्टम. हमारे पास कुछ ऐसे भी ट्राइब्स हैं जो प्रोस्टिट्यूशन को एक फैमिली ऑक्यूपेशन की प्रैक्टिस करती हैं, जैसे आपकी बेदियास हो गए फ्रॉम राजस्थान. देन वी हैव नट कम्युनिटीज, देयर आर सर्टेन कम्युनिटीज. देन इन साउथ इंडिया ऑन द अदर हैंड वी हैव दिस टेम्पल बेस्ड ब्रॉदर प्रोस्टिट्यूशन, देवदासी सिस्टम जो प्रॉपर था. और इनफैक्ट देयर आर रिपोर्ट्स दैट इवन पुरी टेम्पल, जगन्नाथ पुरी टेम्पल, had a Devdasi who died few years ago. She was the oldest or alive, because there are no official statistics on these problems. The biggest issue is whatever data reports you have. If you look at the NCRB data, they'll report only in thousands. But believe me, they are just tip of the iceberg. As we know, there is a huge underreporting of sex trafficking data because there are no vital statistics on this, and all these business, all these crime are unorganized. It's very difficult to track. In fact, government Ministry of Women and Child Development report says that there are more than 3 million females only in brothel-based prostitution in the 3 major cities of India: Kolkata, Mumbai, and Delhi. Leave out the other India. You know how many cities are there, and we have this history of red light area in every city. So if we talk about, if we have no data about the 3 major cities, metropolitan cities, then you can think about what is happening, what would be happening in the remote corners. And sex trafficking is held for numerous things. There are now sex tourism is also becoming problem. But my focus is only on brothel-based prostitution. And vulnerability, when we talk about vulnerable elements. Now, what is vulnerability? Vulnerability is when you have no other alternative. Vulnerability is when due to your own position, you have no other option. Just you have to succumb to the external forces. Poverty is the best region which is hailed in the literature, and because in narratives it looks better to read that she got trafficked due to poverty, but the problems are deeper. There is a feminization of poverty, where females are doubly victimized due to their gender. Then we have child marriages. Every 10 girls in India gets married before her 14 years of age. So you can think about the statistics, how many child brides are there, and what these child brides are highly vulnerable because due to their young age, they are uneducated, they have no skill training, and in case of dissolution of marriage or widowhood, they become the prime target, or they are primarily vulnerable to trafficking. Then we have high illiteracy, then environmental disasters. And I am afraid to say, although there are no statistics or no data coming from the government sources, I'm really afraid that due to COVID, within the next 2 or 3 years, you'll see there have been rise in trafficking because all these emergencies, disaster or climatic pandemic, increase the vulnerability of the females, increasing their susceptibility to trafficking, where they are sold or where they are being trafficked to support the family. Now, context and process of trafficking are well known because many girls they are being kidnapped, or sometime in various communities they may be even sold by their own families to support the family or the other family or siblings. Then there is many times these runaway girls who are late adolescents or late teens, they are being targeted under the lover boy network, where the traffickers or the brokers may lure them under the pretext of marriages or romantic facade, and they may be sold into these brothels. If you talk about the other countries, or in fact leaving India, we have the instances of kidnapping are also there, where girls may be kidnapped and sold into the brothel. But India, due to the widespread poverty and abject disposition of the girls, abduction or kidnapping is reported quite low due to the same widespread poverty, where girls are highly vulnerable. Now, when you look at the age profile, there is high demand for teenagers and late adolescents in the brothels, and there are numerous factors for this. First of all, they are quite profitable for the brothel owners, as due to their young age, they may be able to work for a longer time. So they kind of yield high return. Plus, due to their young age, they are believed to be free from infections, and client preferably want young or late adolescent, as they believe that they are less threat to the infections or sexually transmitted infection. And third, if you look at the social context, in India, virginity is a prime criteria for marriage. When virgin girls have a high market even in the institution of marriage. So similar happens in the trafficking. In trafficking, even virgin girls are fetched quite high demand, and many times girls as young as 7 or 6 may be taken by the brothel owners, and they may groom her for the trafficking so that she can fetch when she reaches maturity or is starts menstruating. She may be sold for higher price. Now, it's not that India don't have laws and legislation on trafficking. One may wonder that if there is such high incidence of trafficking or such susceptibility, what is the government doing? Now, you will be surprised to hear that India is the first country to have incorporated anti-trafficking intervention in its constitution before even the modern post-independence constitution was launched. And even in the pre-independence time, India had an Indian Penal Code of 1860, which had provisions to target or which abolished or criminalized trafficking. Like if you look at the Indian IPC section 366A, 366B. 366A prohibits importation of girls for trafficking from within the India, while 360B prohibits trafficking of girls from outside the country. So both were penalized. And when the founders of our modern constitution, Nehruji and Ambedkar, they all took cognizance of the high incidence of trafficking, and they had instituted numerous articles which targeted trafficking, like Article 23. Article 23 prohibits bekar and trafficking is prohibited. Then we have our first full-fledged law, which was specifically dedicated to trafficking, SITA, Suppression of Immoral Trafficking in Girls and Women Act of 1956. And India is also a signatory. In this India, when I'm saying this is not only post-independence India or modern India, but even during 19th century when India was under the British imperialism, India is a signatory to national and international conventions on trafficking. Now, the first international trafficking on convention was released in 1904 when International Agreement for the Suppression of the White Slave Trafficking was born. India is also signatory to this convention and made significant changes to domestic legislation to enforce this law. Then there was a major convention in 1949, which is suppression of the trafficking in person and the exploitation of the prostitution of others. Now, this convention is very important because this was international convention, and the India's own convention of 1956, which is the first domestic legislation, was directly in convention with this 1949. So India had tried to imbibe all the good, or you can say the best practices of the 1949 convention. And this was very comprehensive law. You can see during that period when India was just ushering into independence. So this was a good legislation, but sadly, all these laws have not been able to prevent trafficking. And sad reality is that trafficking still continues to plague millions of girls and women throughout the country. Now, there was then in the year 2003, United Nations Protocol to suppress and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children. Now, this convention is important in its own right because apart from earlier convention, though prohibited trafficking of the children, like the suppression of immoral trafficking, 1956, but it didn't define who is children. So this was kind of left open. they had in some places they had they used the term minors, then they had different conventions. So the laws were often conflicting with each other. But this convention of 2003, it adopted its definition of children from the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child to 1989, and the trafficking of under 18 means all the under 18, below 18 individuals, they were categorized as children and they were to be protected from trafficking. Now, recently in the year 2008, this FITA Act was revised, and Trafficking in Person Prevention, Protection and Rehabilitation Act was passed. Now, this recent amendment is believed to be very comprehensive and stringent. But the biggest problem with these law is that it is overt focus on the protection and rehabilitation, and it says less about the pre-trafficking context. Because I would discuss it further. In trafficking context, post compensation or post protection is less effective than when prevention in the pre-trafficking stage. Now, if we look at the anti-trafficking interventions in India, we have mostly 5 R's. The law says that you raid, you go and forcibly evict and rescue them. Now, section 16 of the ITPPA says that any individual, it entitles every individual, in fact, me, you, anybody, you can go and contact an NGO and organize a raid inside a brothel. And if you find a minor is there, you can help her get evicted out of that premises. Now, this is the power which is given to every individual, section 16. This is very important. Then we have rescue. Now, rescue is the forceful removal. If we talk about what is rescue, it is the forceful removal from the trafficking context. So government says if some woman or girl is being trafficked inside the brothels against her will, then she should be rescued. Then there is provision for rehabilitation. Now, what is rehabilitation? Rehabilitation basically implies restoration to a former state. So the government says, or intervention says, that they must be supported, they must be given some assistance for their recovery, and they must be reintegrated. Now, reintegrated is returning to their home or community. When you are being sent, now this concept has been taken from the migration theory, where you return to your home. But you know, once you leave your own community or your own society, return becomes very complex. It's not easy as before. And sadly, it has been found that although there is provision for rescue, rehabilitation, reintegration, and there are elaborate plans for them, but re-trafficking is very high among the survivors. Now, what is re-trafficking? Re-trafficking is once you are being rescued from the premises, or you are being forcefully evicted from your exploitative brothels, then again you go back to that places. Now, this may sound strange, that why somebody who is being removed from the exploitative position may want to go back or may go back again. This is a very complex question and raises question on the rehabilitation mechanism. So if we want to examine why re-trafficking is there, because 10 in 8 victims, they may choose to return back to their same exploitative brothel condition. And why this is taking place, I'll get back in some time. Now, there was rehabilitation, provision for rehabilitation, reintegration in Immoral Trafficking Prevention Act of 1986. But sadly, rehabilitation was not given that attention, and there was no specific provision. There was no apparatus to carry out the rehabilitation of the survivors or the girls who or women who are being evicted from the brothels. In 1996, there was raid in brothels in Mumbai, from where 526 girls from India, Nepal, and Bangladesh neighboring countries were evicted, and they were to be removed from the brothels and sent back to their homes. Now, what happened when these girls were removed? Because the government didn't have any apparatus for the rehabilitation, the biggest challenge which emerged was the police who were involved in the rehabilitation. They didn't have any adequate place or any support to keep these girls. So what happened? They were left in different remand homes across Mumbai. Now these remand homes were not prepared at all to house the trafficking survivors. So they had to remain there and without any adequate support, because see, trafficking victims, they become a different category. So support, housing them in house for widows or delinquents, that's a different category, and you need different apparatus or assistant measures to support them. Now after that, because of some of the girls were from outside the country and some were from inside, sending them back them to their home involved uh, locating their houses or verification of their homes, and for this the police needed some time to keep them in Mumbai. So the question was raised when how to rehabilitate them or what measures should be given, or there was large scale media outcry and there was lot widespread criticism of the approach of the police, that traffic victims, they were left in different remand homes with without adequate care and protection. So the Ministry of Women and Child Development came with a plan of action to combat trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation of women and children in 1998. Now, this plan had extensive provisions for their rehabilitation, their rescue, what support should be given to them, what skills should be given to them, how they should be reintegrated. This was absolutely a comprehensive plan. Now, later it was gradually deliberation for going on and on rehabilitation. It was realized that the problem of the women who are above 18. Now, 18 is a kind of watershed. So under 18, you are treated as a child, and above 18, when you are treated as women. So their problem for their requirement for different post rehabilitation. So we need a different action plan. So Juvenile Justice Act was passed in 2000, year 2000, and Juvenile Justice Act treats trafficked children as children in need of care and protection. So there were protective homes, and it was made that whenever a raid and rescue is done, determination of the age should be done. This provision is under section 15 of the ITPPA. And if a woman is under 18, then she is sent to some protection home and she is produced before child welfare committee and so on. Now there is provision for their mental, physical and vocational rehabilitation and skill training. Now during my field, I did my field work among the survivors of sex trafficking, and my focus was under 18, this watershed. This is kind of a watershed because in fact, if you are under 18, you are 17 years and 366 days, you are treated or sent to a different mechanism, or you are treated under child welfare committee. And as you become 18 plus 1 day, your treatment, although you maybe have suffered the same problem in the brothel, you have been exposed to same violence, but the support system for both are quite contrast and they are quite conflicting to each other. Now, what happens, as I told you, because Section 18 empowers to go and conduct a raid and remove the minor, so removal of the survivors from the brothels. Now, what happened, because trafficking is a clandestine business, you don't have a legal entitlement to run it. All these brothel premises are considered illegal. So the children, although they are not children, but because the law conceptualizes them as children, it is better I should refer to them minors. Minors are also quite afraid because they are being groomed that you can't go out, otherwise police will arrest you. So there is lack of information sharing when even during the raids and rescue, they are not being involved and they are being forcefully evicted. Now this treatment or approach of the police, because abusive approach of the police, where it is they may be even beaten during the raid, so they may be subjected to violence. Then there was flawed design, or when there is a raid in a brothel, all the women, they may be booked under for solicitation, Anti-Solicitation Act, which says that you can't solicit in a public place. So whenever a raid is there, women are booked under Section 8, Anti-Solicitation Act. But actually, the kingpins, the brothel owners, they are left free. They are not given harsher punishment which they deserve. Instead, the victims or the trafficked persons, they are being exposed to more harsher punishment. Now, what happens, because they are under 18, they are less knowledgeable of the laws. So they also resent, they are also quite fearful of the police. They are being removed in the bulk, and post removal, they may be lodged at the police station for hours without any adequate support or system, or without any information sharing. Because in the absence of the information sharing, where they are uh, not told or anything or briefed about the raid or rescue, they feel quite bewildered. So for them, raid may seem to be kind of another exploitative or abusive behavior which they are being prone to or subject to inside the brothels. So for many of the survivors with whom I've interviewed in my research, raid are also raid which are believed to be emancipating for them, liberating for them, but they are not satisfied, or they see it as another victimization approach. Now, life at the shelter home, it's quite conflicting to say that although these shelter home, all these provisions, they were made benevolently made, and they are quite they were designed to fulfill or support the survivors, but in the practice, how they are being carried out, this is quite frustrating. And the worker, in fact, the survivors feel frustrated, and many of them, they don't want to go back to their home. They simply repent, and they say that I want to go to the brothels again. I am getting frustrated here. Now, whenever the survivor or the female who is under 18, she is being rescued, then she is sent to a shelter home, and there they are being given health amenities if they are suffering from any physical injury or any kind of injury. Then they have mental counseling because they are in traumatic state. They have many emotional and mental outcome, so they need mental counseling. Then there is skill training. Now, skill training is also, if you look at the options available for these girls inside these colleges, and not colleges, sorry, shelter home, they are quite traditional. You will see only make like beautician or female centric. The skill training which have been given is not market oriented. So if you talk to them, what are you certified? So they feel that these skills may not be so viable when they are outside the shelter, or they may not be able to support them independently when they are able to go back to their home or communities. Now, if you look at the structure of the shelter home, there is overt focus on the physical safety of the survivors, where they are kept inside the doors, they are locked, their movements are guarded. Now, this is the biggest frustration which I have seen, or which the survivors have shared with me. They always resent this because they are being locked inside two doors. But this guarding on their doors, or this surveillance on their safe movement, this makes them frustrated, and they may not like, they resent the services at the shelter home, or they want to leave the shelter home. And in fact, many of them, they are so frustrated with all these things that they may feel that their life at the brothel was far better than what they are living at the shelter, which is for their safety, or where they. Now, objective of this rehabilitation program is to prepare them for the return to their homes and community, where they are endowed with skill training, or they are given counseling. But sadly, all these amenities, which though were framed with a benevolent intention, they have been not found to be effective in reality, and many of them are resent. Plus, for all these survivors, return to their home is mandatory. But in practice or in reality, for many of the survivors, returning to their home is not a feasible option, because they fear that going back to them, their family may not accept them, or they may be exposed to same pre-trafficking context which prompted their trafficking in the first instance. So mandatory return to home, so they don't feel satisfied there, or they feel frustrated, and many of them want to return to the same brothel from where they were evicted, where they were forcibly evicted. Now, if you look at the overall structure, because I'll go on discussion about the rehabilitation, I have different points. If you look at the overall structure, these rehabilitation assistance measures or programs or whatever you can say undermine rights perspective. They don't focus, emphasize on the rights. They are designed to infantilize them. They are supposed to follow the rules of the shelter home. They are supposed to follow. They are being treated as a children, or they are being infantilized without listening to their concern, what their concerns and how they want to go home, or why don't they want to go home. In fact, they are being believed to succumb to the goodwill or the mandate of these programs. They are being asked to succumb to the goodwill of the shelter owners, brothel personals, sorry, not brothel personals, shelter owners, where their routine, their lifestyle, all is guarded. So this actually is infantilization, where the interest of the adults are being subjected according to the goodwill of the program or beneficiaries. Now, one more important concern is negation of the brothel experience. Now, for many of the survivor brothel experience, they are being exposed to brothel in their first entry. So they are quite bewildered, or in fact, they may have traumatic aftermath, and they may not behave as a normal 15 or 16 years girl. They may be changing their behavior. Now, once they are at the shelter, they are being treated that it never happened. They are believed to succumb to the model of the child. You should be like a child. Now, the childhood model which they are following is from United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child. Now, this is not suitable for the Indian context, because in India, child marriages are common, and how the girls are being treated after 8 or 9 years. It's a different context. They are no longer treated as a child, and they are in fact being trained to being marriageable quality. So right from if you look at the upbringing of the girls in the middle class or lower middle class, they are being trained to be of marriageable quality. They may be supposed to contribute to household work, help their mother, so that when they grow up, they become good brides. They should be marketable for marriage in the marriage market. Now, Western model of child and childhood says that childhood resonates innocence. You should be innocent. But many of the girls, they are coming from lower middle income classes, where they are being their social construction or their social treatment is different. So they cannot succumb to the model of childhood, Western model of childhood. They cannot be childlike, which the law or the rehabilitation assistant assumes them to be. It wants that the victim who come, they should be childlike, they should be ready to listen, they should be open. But many of the girls, they undergo a lot of transformation during their trafficking experience, and this brothel experience is totally negative. Now, when we are discussing the rehabilitation or all these things, it is very important to invoke critical theory perspective. Now, critical theory perspective, it was given by Marx. Now, there is a widespread gap in rehabilitation in theory and rehabilitation in practice. Now, Marx is someone which I left in 2000, I think 6 in my political science, and I thought I'll never meet him again. But ironically, I have been reading Marx, or I'm supposed to quote Marx every lecture I have been giving or every paper I have been writing. So Marx is something which engulfs our everyday life. So Marx says that the knowledge of how knowledge is created. It is knowledge always reflect the interest of the dominant group. So whatever models are there or whatever social structure are there, like Marx's famous quote, uh, infrastructure is the base of the superstructure. Your economic system reflects the law of legislation, art, and culture of any society. So whatever these rehabilitation programs are, you have to analyze them from the critical Marxist perspective. Who makes these programs and how this marginalized people are treated? It all depends upon your economic structure. So if you look at this rehabilitation program which were designed, now rehabilitation program, if you look at them, these are basically developed countries model. India, or in fact, India and all other countries have been following the model from the developed country. So if you look at them, there's overt emphasis on skill training. And skill training approach serves capitalism, resonating the Marxist idea that whatever your supports economic systems decides your ideology, religion. So this is true and applicable, in fact, even the rehabilitation program as such. And if you look at them, there is undermining of strength-based approach. There are overt emphasis on their skill training, but none of the rehabilitation program talks about the strength-based approach, where they should be empowered to deal on their own. It is believed, or the beneficiaries or benevolent policy believe, that if you make them skill train, if you give them skills, they may be able to survive. But for survival or reintegration, successful reintegration, where they are able to positively engage with their own community. Apart from skill training, they also need strength-based approach. And apart from skill training, Marxist approach, you also need to revoke post-colonialism. Now, what is post-colonialism? Post-colonialism is simply after colonialism, the imprint of imperial powers, Orientalism epistemology. Now, with India has been under the British domination for so many years. So what happened? All the theories or whatever writings were produced, the benchmark of Western culture. So we always, there was a practice of evaluation of own culture with respect to Western culture. In fact, our food habits, they all were judged. So Oriental epistemology basically creates the others, like Britishers against Indians. Orient, they were unfamiliar because Britishers always saw these third world countries as the others, versus them. So this has been very important. So the approach of the developed countries versus developing countries has been quite different. The same problem which are in Western country may be treated differently, and while the popular representation of similar problem in developing countries or third world countries is treated differently. Like if I give you a common example of child marriages or teen pregnancy. If you look at the reports of the major NGOs, human rights organization, there is a widespread outcry on the child marriages or teen pregnancies in India. But nobody talks about the teen pregnancies or same problem within the American context. There is a high rate of teen pregnancy even in the US. But the major discussion focuses on the problems from the third world countries. There is basically colonial imprint of the ethnographic material. So even your writing, your policy, they all have been made in this way. Now, there have been several trafficking because I told you this is an age-old problem, and in fact, all three metropolitan cities of India, they have their own brothels which are quite famous, and they may be more than 200 to 300 years old. You have MG Road in Delhi, GB Road, Guardian Bafta Road in Delhi. Then you have Kamathipura in Bombay and Sonagachi in Kolkata. Now, if I don't want to revoke much time, but if you look at the historical development of these places, all these brothels were developed and supported by the Britishers to support their migrants, for their migrants and soldiers. So all these brothels developed under the state patronage. Although different developments, these brothels were stigmatized and they became outcast, and in fact, they brothel or prostitution was criminalized gradually. Now there are different developments, and that needs a different session. If you want to deliberate on that, that's an entirely different session. So there was huge outcry and entry of the in year 2004. There was a Oscar-winning documentary. Hello, can you listen to me? Hello.
Madam,
Yes, ma'am.
please.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. Oh, I think I got muted in between. Oh, sorry. So what happened? 8 minutes. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So there was this movie, Born into Brothers. It is not the only movie. There have been a lot of movies which are made on the brothel women and their children. Now this movie got Oscar. So after this, there was because it won Oscar, there was widespread media attention to this. And this movie was made by Jana Brisky and Rolf Kaufman. They were New York-based photographers. There was sudden turn towards the trafficking problem in the developing countries or the third world countries, because if you look at the problem of trafficking from Bangladesh, Nepal, all these are there. So there was huge outcry that, oh, there is a lot of trafficking, there should be some measures should be done in the third world country, and they need intervention from the developed countries, so that we could protect the women from there, as the third world are not able to support their own women. So there was the entry of the large number of Western human rights organizations. So there was aesthetic representation of vulnerability and sufferings. Now, the basic problem with these narratives is that they undermine the resistance and resilience of the females inside these brothels. Although these women may be forced, hello. So what's happening?
Yes, ma'am. You can continue, ma'am.
I'm clearly audible, ma'am.
Although these women may be forced, they may be duped, but it's not that they continue to suffer. They show their resistance, their resilience, and many of these women, they are quite instrumental in deciding their own fate inside the brothels, and because due to their own option.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Please continue. Maybe some technical issues.
Madam, please unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yes, please continue, madam.
1 minute. Huh. Now, these women show negotiation even, in fact, inside the brothel. If you analyze their life, it's not that they are being always forced. They enjoy some freedom and they negotiate their freedom. It's not that they get that freedom. They negotiate. They display resistance and resilience. It's not they always succumb. Many of them are able to shape their life according to themselves. So, if you look at these narratives or meta narratives which are coming from the developed countries towards the third world countries, you'll see there is infantilization of their women and girls, where they are supposed to follow or be to come out as an idle victim. It's not that. Now, if you look at the India's law, there is problem is that the India follows abolitionist framework on prostitution. Now, abolitionist framework, what happens is that prostitution as such is not prohibited. I would like to repeat, prostitution as such is not prohibited, but solicitation in public place is criminalized. Now, what happens is this is the biggest loophole of the law under which police victimize the females. So, in fact, even many times the women who may be booked, they are booked, although they may be prostituting inside their rooms or inside the brothel, they are being displayed as prostituting in public place. Now, this dichotomy under the law, where you can have prostitution in your public private sphere, but you cannot solicit in your private sphere, public sphere, that makes problematic for the woman. So the law needs to be reformulated. There is a large scale need to reformulate the law. We have to revise our law, revise our framework. How either you have to come to a specific policy, because what happens under this provision, women are being criminalized or they are being victimized by the police. Now, raid and rescue, not an effective intervention strategy, because by the time raid and rescue are being carried, a lot of damage is being done to the woman or the girl, and thus it is always advisable to focus on pre-trafficking context, like a community-based measures where you focus on the empowerment, strength building before trafficking occurs. So we must target the we must have the GPS model, GI of the susceptible area, and we must protect the trafficking in the pre-trafficking phase, because the damage which is done with it is so huge that it is irreparable. The woman who returns from the brothel experience may sometimes she may not recover from that experience throughout her life, and that may affect her own personality or self-worth for whole her life. Now, rescue and rehabilitation fail to accommodate the impact of brothel experience, as I told you, that once because they have been, they might have been there for 15 days or 20 days, so they negotiate their own fare to survive there for sustenance. It's a common practice that even if I come to your house, I'll try to accommodate according to you. I may like to see how you are doing, so I may adjust myself. Now, see the plight of the girls or women who are who are being duped inside the brothel against their wish. So negotiation becomes important part of their survival. Now, once they are back at the shelter home, it is believed that they would behave like a child, and they may want to listen to you, or they may behave that, I'm being thankful that I'm being survived, and they will oblige you. It's not there. And this morality frame, because trafficking is more than the criminal offense framework, it is treated as a morality framework. So police and the others, they are less concerned about the torture. They are more focused on the moral issue, that prostitution has a moral problem. It creates a moral setback for the society. Now, rehabilitation favors idle survival. To be a good recipient, you need to be a good idle survivor, that you should have been duped from the economic poverty or something. The girls who may have ran with their boyfriends or who may be sold by their boyfriend, they are being ridiculed here at the shelter home. Once their history or trafficking history gets into their files, they are exposed to numerous kinds of discrimination in the shelter home. Now, this is quite frustrating, and all these affect their identification or satisfaction with the rehabilitation program, and which affects their living and response to the rehabilitation and reintegration framework. Now, if we look at the Western model of childhood is resonated with the play and training, where you are supposed to play and training without any care for without any other concerns. You must have some training or education kind of thing in play. But in India, for these girls, those who are coming from discriminative backgrounds, they may be suffering from poverty, they may be living in abject poverty, or they may be coming from gender discrimination, where they face gender discrimination inside their household. So this model of childhood doesn't applies to them. So they don't resonate this childhood. Now the policy believes that we must emancipation of lost childhood. The traffic victims who are being duped or kidnapped or forced, now they must turn into a child at the end of the program. Now this is not applicable to them. So you have to keep in mind their social context from where the victims are hailing. One size fits all was a tailor-made program. Now these programs are for all, but you know that because trafficking victims survive from different, they hail from different contexts. Some may be sold for economic reason, or some may be duped by or sold by their husbands or their boyfriend. So if you are designing some program, these programs may not be applicable to all. So you need to have tailor-made programs. Because if the girl, if she have run away from her boyfriend, her family might be very angry with her. They may not want to take her back. They may fear stigma from the other people. So you need to look into their case history and have adequate program or reintegration program for all these women. And most importantly, the rehabilitation must focus on the capacity building of the survivors. We must focus on their capacity building instead of me giving you, you take this, you take this. We must ask them what they want, what their requirements are. And last but not the least, the paternalistic framework, the approach which we have, must give a way to participatory approach where they must be involved, they must be shared. Okay, like if they are living, when they come to the shelter, there are a lot many formalities like there is bone ossification test, then you have different numerous tests, numerous court proceedings. They must be involved instead of asking them to comply to or follow all these schedules. They must be involved. That okay, now you must your situation of this, your case is at this position. So in this way, they will feel more included and feel satisfied with the provisions available for them. Now, if this is the last, here I would like to end the concept of intersectionality, because the victims hail from different age. Now, here I'm clubbing the trafficking because even if you talk about nationality, there needs the victim who is hailing from Nepal or Bangladesh or India, they have different contexts. Their caste, you know how caste is important in Indian context, where people from the lower caste who are being exposed to discrimination in their daily life. So there is a large scale intersectionality of these factors also. So when designing a rehabilitation program for the survivors of trafficking, we must we must take account of all these factors too. Thank you for listening to me so patiently.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sonal Pandey. Uh, आपके वंडरफुल सेशन के लिए आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. बहुत अच्छा आपने लेक्चर दिया है यहाँ. Now I would like to call Dr. Jeevan Junjunwala for ask the question and a few words in this regard. Dr. Jeevan Junjunwala from Odisha.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of the forum and the participants, first I would like to thank Madam for a wonderful presentation on the topic. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Ma'am, as such, there are no such questions, but one of the participants has shared his view regarding this. According to him, dance bar in Mumbai and Maharashtra were closed by state government.
Yeah.
There was a large hue and cry that is against a woman's right to earn bread by showing their performance. The bar owners went to the court and the court allowed these to reopen. But law was made and passed against this in Legislative Assembly. Law and strong willpower of government is required to stop this evil of society. What do you want to say on this?
Now, see, whenever we look at, I told you, from this context, we always look at from middle class perspective. It is a we don't take prostitution as a criminal justice offense. Okay, we always view from morality framework. How can she engage in this? Do you know there are numerous communities who have been practicing prostitution as a familial based occupation? Now, if you want to reintegrate that girl into her home, what will she do? So when you have to design these programs, you have, in fact, I didn't wanted to elaborate here. The criminalization of prostitution in India is directly could be attributed to the Britishers in India. Now, Britishers criminalized brothels because they were during the pre-independence movement. These brothels were the popular center of area deliberation where all the royalties met and planned the freedom struggle. Okay.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
Britishers got threatened by this and they started criminalizing them. Otherwise, you know, India has a royal history of prostitution.
Yes.
You have Arthashastra in which Chanakya talks about Roop Jiva. Okay, Kautil talks about Roop Jiva. Now these women were state sponsored. They paid even taxes to the state. And even during, if you look at the literature from 18th century, many of the popular prostitutes, they were the highest tax paying. So prostitution as such was never criminalized in India. And this directly became the offshoot of the British imperialism because Britishers were concerned, and there was some other apart from this threat of the uh, people, there were other concerns of also like race of the concept of the race because the Britishers were more focused on the racial purity, so they were scared that the interbreeding among the Indians and the Britishers would produce mutation. So for many women, they have been doing into this. So before designing or revising any law, you have to take these issues into consideration.
Yes, ma'am. And one more question is there.
Yeah.
Will COVID-19 have impact on women trafficking or prostitution?
Definitely. Because lot many people, I am very scared, although I don't have data any data as such, but I believe that there would be rise in the trafficking of women post-COVID. Lot many people have lost their livelihood. So in lieu of the adequate means of support, they would be rise in the sale or in purchase of the girls. I'm really afraid.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for taking up the questions. Over to Tarun, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jeevan Jhunjhunwala. Now I would like to call Dr. G. Vijaya Lakshmi from Jamshedpur. Please kindly spoke a few words in this regard and any questions. Dr. G. Vijaya Lakshmi, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Pandey. Ma'am, you have enlightened us with several provisions related to anti-trafficking laws in India and other aspects as well related to this. And I'm agree with you that definitely after COVID-19, these trafficking cases are going to raise. In my view, the adolescent girls are trapped because of some livelihood support reasons. So working on the root cause uh, are really needed. And to check this problem by the government, NGOs and civil society need to work collectively. So what is your view?
Definitely, ma'am. We need government alone cannot work. We need intervention from civil
Yes,
society, and we must focus on community building. Because if
yes.
community is empowered, then they themselves would act as a determinant, and they would be able to prevent trafficking.
Yes, and one more
So,
point, man. This is my experience with the NGOs. They are only going to limit their awareness with the adolescent girls by giving them or providing them health and hygiene related measures and this kind of awareness only. So now the time come that they should must provide some livelihood skills also so that the migration problem can also be checked.
ma'am, see what because I have been also reading, and in fact, I'm working with some of the NGO,
Yes.
voluntary although. The programs which NGOs run are donor driven. The basic problem with them is that whatever donor wants, they have to fulfill that. So if there is provision and support from the government or other sources, then only NGOs can survive, because they are mostly dependent on the aid from the other agencies. So their programs reflect the donor's interest. As I told you, because these are these rehabilitation, not all these donors are from the developed countries. They hail from the developed countries. So they have their own notions of support and strength for the women from the developed countries, for the third world country. So unless
yes, ma'am, I think so. It means the corporate world should also come forward to
yes,
support the
CSR
NGOs.
initiative may come forward.
Yes, CSR. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. G. Vijaya Lakshmi.
Thank you, sir.
And पार्टिसिपेंट्स में अगर किसी का कोई भी क्वेश्चंस हो तो वो भी पूछ सकते हैं. कोई भी पार्टिसिपेंट अगर कोई भी अगर अपना क्वेश्चन पूछना चाहे तो वो भी पूछ सकते हैं और उनका स्वागत है. Thank you, everyone. And now I would like to call Dr. Shekhar Sharma, sir, is the chairman of our forum of Commerce and Management Studies, a renowned professor of Commerce and Faculty of Management, NRSC College, Khurja. And please, for vote of thanks, Dr. Shekhar Sharma, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Tarun. May I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
मेरी
Yes,
आवाज आ
sir.
रही है आप तक?
Yes, sir.
हाँ जी, बिल्कुल आ रही है सर.
Namaskar. The webinar has been a wonderful experience. Thanks to the impeccable insights shared with us by Dr. Sonal Pandey from Sarda University, Greater Noida. I would like to thanks from the bottom of my heart. I would also like to thanks to all active members of Forum of Commerce and Management, Mr. Dr. Jeevan Jhunjhunwala, Dr. Rajnish Ratna, Mr. G. Vijay Lakshmi, all active members. I would also like to have a hardworking team of Dr. Tarun Srivastava along with our treasurer, Ms. Tripti Singh, for their untiring efforts for this successful webinar. Lastly, I would also like to my vote of thanks to all participants who have graced us through Google Meet, web, WhatsApp group, and directly on Zoom app, who have graced us from different corners of this country and abroad. Again, जो टॉपिक आप लोगों ने आज डिसाइड किया इस वेबिनार के लिए, ये बड़ा चिंताजनक, खास तौर से हम लोगों के लिए जो इंडियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट की अगर बात करें. देयर आर सो मेनी लॉज, बहुत सारे कानून बनाए जैसा कि मैडम ने बताया, लेकिन बावजूद इसके ये वीमेन जो ट्रैफिकिंग, एंटी ट्रैफिकिंग की जो हम बात करते हैं, बहुत सारे कानून बने, लेकिन बावजूद इसके ये एक समस्या एक क्राइम की फॉर्म में हमारे सामने है. गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ने वीमेन वेलफेयर के लिए, चिल्ड्रन वेलफेयर के लिए बहुत सारे अधिकारी, ऑफिसर्स को अपॉइंट किया. बट आई ऑब्जर्व जो भी लोग इस वेलफेयर से जुड़े हुए, लेकिन करप्शन की वजह से संभवतः, जो मेरा अपना खुद का एक्सपीरियंस है, मैडम ने अपनी रिसर्च में उसको कितना स्टडी किया नहीं किया मैं नहीं जानता, लेकिन मेरा अपना मानना है, मेरा अपना ऑब्जर्वेशन है कि इस तरह के जो लोग जो वेलफेयर से जुड़े हुए जो अधिकारी लोग हैं, इवन पुलिस भी है, इस करप्शन की वजह से इन कानूनों को तोड़ मरोड़ करके जितना ये जो ट्रैफिकिंग की प्रॉब्लम है उनकी वजह से शायद ये नहीं रुक पा रहा है, ये नहीं हो पा रहा है, जिससे कि ये इफेक्टिवली वर्क कर सके। और लास्टली मैं मैडम को दोबारा से थैंक यू कहूंगा कि इस वंडरफुल वेबिनार को उन्होंने संबोधित किया, सभी को एक जानकारी दी। थैंक्स टू ऑल अगेन। थैंक यू डॉक्टर तरुण श्रीवास्तव। हेलो हेलो हेलो
थैंक यू सर।
हाँ,
थैंक यू सो मच सर, आपने कीमती समय निकाला बाहर रहते हुए भी आज आपने पार्टिसिपेट किया, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मैं डॉक्टर सोनल पांडे जी को भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूँ, सभी पार्टिसिपेंट्स को शुक्रिया कर रहा हूँ मैं। At the conclusion of the webinar, there will be the national anthem of India and the webinar will be concluded. इसके साथ ही भारत का राष्ट्रीय गान अब होगा और उसके साथ ही सेमिनार का समापन यहाँ होगा। आप सभी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब। तव शुभ नाम जगे, तब शुभ आशीष मांगे, गाहे तव जय गाथा। जन गण मंगल नायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय जय जय
थैंक यू सो मच। आप सभी लोगों का बहुत बहुत अगेन धन्यवाद। और मैडम का मैडम